What is going on, everybody? I hope you're having a great day. Today I am taking my rear 14-bolt axle over to my buddy's shop so that we can weld on the TMR Customs 14-bolt 1-ton swap truss kit. And before I do that, I'm going over to the shop first off where I have to pick up the axle, but I'm going to do a quick unboxing video covering all the parts and pieces that you get in the kit, and then we'll get on over to my buddy's shop, start getting everything welded. But that's the plan, so I'll see you guys in a couple minutes when I get there. Alright, so I made it to the shop. I got all of the parts and pieces out of the box just to make this a little bit quicker, but we're going to go ahead, start going through everything and show you everything that you get in the kit. Now, of course, the first main thing you're going to get is the actual truss itself, your front piece, your back piece, and your top plate. Now, again, basically covers almost the entire axle from side to side. It's super thick. It's going to hold up to whatever you put it through, but it looks beautiful, and we'll get it welded on here pretty shortly, but we'll start moving into all the other little bits and pieces in the kit. Alright, so the first bracket we're going to talk about is your lower control arm bracket. Now, it's super simple and easy to place onto the axle / truss. What you're going to do is you're going to take the curved cutouts, and you're going to take the little knob on top to key it into place. You're going to put the curve down at the bottom side of the axle, take the little knob and key it into the top plate of the truss, so it all fits exactly where it's supposed to and lines up so that you can bolt it right up to your Jeep. Now also you're going to have a skid plate for the bottom side, a sway bar tab, and a shock bracket. Once you put them all together, it will be somewhat similar to this. This will actually be sitting like that. The shock bracket, you got two little square holes. You're going to just key it into place, and it's going to sit at a slight angle. That way it bolts up perfectly into the Jeep and you don't have any issues. The next thing is your sway bar tab, which is going to go right here in the rectangle and just get welded right into place. And you have two options depending for height and everything. But that's basically it for the lower control arm bracket. We'll get into the next thing. Alright, so your next bracket is going to be your upper control arm mount. Now again, it's going to be super simple to install. You have a little rectangle square cutout right here, and then you have your curves for the top tube. What you're going to do is you're going to come over to the side of the axle and the truss. You're going to place it down, and you're going to key that square right into this little notch on the side of the top plate of the truss. Now with this, you also have a little bump / skid plate that's going to get welded right into the top. And once you have it all into place, it's going to look just like this on the axle. And like I said, it all keys into place exactly where it needs to go. Alright, so the next thing we're going to talk about is your spring perches. Now again, these are super simple, super easy. You have two cutouts up top. You have a top plate that has two little notches on either side. This is going to sit down right into place. Then you also have two knobs on the bottom. They're going to key right in the top of the axle. You have two different spots. You can do it there, or you can do it there, depending on where you would like to put them, if you're stretching it or not. But that's the spring perches, spring buckets, either way you want to call them, and that's where they're going to sit on the axle. So the next bracket we're going to take a look at is the track bar bracket. Now it's a little bit harder to show without using two hands, but you have four pieces in total. You have this back part of the bracket that keys into this plate right over here. This plate sits along this edge. Everything keys in place so that it all just fits right up just how you want it. And then you also have your front piece, and you have this little back piece. You have a little keyed hole right there. It's going to sit right into place there, and then it's going to mount up right here against the truss. You're going to take the little notch that's here, butt it up onto the top plate of the truss, and get it flush against this little knob that's sticking out right here on the top plate. So the last bracket we're going to talk about is your pinion guard tie-in kit. Now, if you did not order the truss with the pinion guard tie-in kit, then you will not be getting this, but if you did, this is what you will get. first things first is your actual pinion guard itself, and then also the ring that goes around the pinion. There's 4 cutouts and 4 knobs on here. Super simple, lays in place, gets welded together. Next thing you have is your top plate for the actual tie-in kit, which will get welded onto here, the back side of the truss itself, and then this plate right here gets bolted up to it, and also the top 3 holes on the ring itself. Now you also have these 2 plates for a little bit of extra structure that get welded right into place on the back side of this plate. But that is basically it for the pinion guard tie-in kit for the 14-bolt JK 1-ton truss swap kit. So that is basically going to cover all of the parts and pieces that you will get in the kit. You have your shock mounts, your lower control arm, your upper control arm, your spring buckets, a tie-in kit, and basically everything you're going to need so that you can swap this right into a JK or JKU. Now I'm going to go ahead, load it up into the truck, start heading over to my buddy's shop and start getting it welded, get it on the axle.
Losing time, I'm fading fast. I just wanna make it last. Try to let go of the past. I close my eyes, embrace the blast. Sleepless nights and headaches stack. Restlessness to hell and back. What's my purpose? What do I grab? A slippery surface, a heart attack. And sometimes...
Alright, so we got to my buddy's shop. We got the axle unloaded. We got it put on the table. We then took the truss, got it mounted up, marked out where we're gonna have to clean it up so that we can get everything welded on properly. Now we're going through cleaning up the axle and then just basically getting it ready to start welding.
There's something that'll give you relief. There's something that'll have what you need. What you need.
So the first thing that we did after getting the axle completely cleaned up, ready for welding, is Raven went ahead and welded the tubes to the actual diff housing. This is mainly just a precaution so that in the future while wheeling you don't have any chance of the tubes twisting or turning and causing any issues that would come along with that.
We're not all elastic, but maybe there's magic. Believe you could have it. And I know of sadness, the anxious and panic, the infinite vastness of all that is blackness.
So the next thing that Raven did is he went ahead and tacked the 3 pieces of the truss all together. That way, when we're taking it on and off the axle and getting everything set into place, we don't have to piece it together every single time. So since I'm going to be using the factory breather tube location and not the little accordion baffle that TMR does, I had to go ahead and mark a hole in the top plate of the truss, which I then cut out with the plasma cutter so that I could use that factory location. So after getting the hole cut in the top of the plate for the breather tube, we went ahead and set the truss itself aside, and then Raven wanted to start going ahead and tackling all of the brackets. So we got all the parts and pieces for them together and then started just tacking them all into place for now.
We're broken, it's tragic, we're not all elastic, but maybe there's magic. Believe you could have it. And I know of sadness, the anxious and panic, the infinite vastness of all that is blackness.
after getting everything completely tacked up, we set everything aside for a couple of minutes to cool off, and then we went ahead and started getting everything completely welded together. Raven started off with the pinion guard, then he moved on to the spring buckets, followed by the upper control arm mount, the lower control arm mount / shock bracket, and then last but not least he did the track bar mount.
Said I got this, none of this radio pop shit. I dropped this, turning back the clock to rock shit. I cop it, said knock knock, come on this. I'm hot bitch, like a hot bitch, it's not I'm rockin', I got this, radio drop this. Hot shit, just watch this, I fucking promise. So lit, do not miss your chance to cop this. Will you capture it, or just let it slip? Or say I wanna be in, cause my rap is tight. But really they just give a fuck that I ain't black and white. I'm not anyone else, man, I'm one of a kind. So sit back, relax, and listen one more time. I said I got this, none of this radio pop shit. I dropped this, turning back the clock to rock shit. I cop it, said knock knock, I'm on this. I'm hot bitch, like a hot bitch, the top lit. I said I got this, none of this radio pop shit. I dropped this, turning back the clock to rock shit. I cop it, said knock knock, I'm on this. I'm hot bitch, like a hot bitch, the top lit. I love the girls that fuck with my music, getting referrals from the girls love to booze it, party and lose it. That's the life I'm choosing, not losing. That's my 2 cents, so use it. You know I'm back, as a matter of fact. I'm better than ever, never been better. I know that, I wrote that. Sipping on some coke and no jack. Quit staring, bitch, and take a pic. Kodak, I'm threatening the game, cause money and fame, they don't affect my brain. It's fucking all the same. I'm sick of hearing about these Insta names with Insta fame. Take a pic, sick, you're lame. A quick fix to shame. You lick dick for fame. A thick chick is lame. A chick pick to fame.
So after getting all the brackets completely welded, the next thing we had to tackle was the truss itself. We set it down onto the axle, got it all tacked into place. Once we had that done, Raven went ahead, welded the truss all together, and then he welded it to the actual axle itself. Now, before we got this all done, we had to make a couple slight modifications to the top plate of the truss, which I will show you and talk about at the end of the video.
I think I've lost my brain, and honestly, I'm a motherfucking novelty. None of this radio pop shit. I dropped this, turning back the clock to rock shit. I cop it, said knock knock, I'm on this. I'm hot bitch, like a hot bitch, the top lit. And I got this, none of this radio pop shit.
So after Raven got the truss completely welded and welded down to the axle, the next thing I did is I took the lower control arm mount, the upper control arm mount, and the track bar, placed them down on the axle where they're supposed to go, marked out where they're going to lay up. That way I could go ahead, clean up the axle tube, that way we get solid welds. Once I was finished cleaning, the next thing Raven did is he went ahead, started with each bracket, started getting them all tacked into place. Once he had them all tacked up, then he went ahead and started welding everything.
I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want, so I'll take it on. I've made mistakes, but mistakes make you strong. Let's break it down for a minute. I want the crown, I'm gon' get it. You hear me loud, man, I'm winning. Yeah, Charlie Sheen will be grinning. These ladies know that I'm sinning, and this is just the beginning. I'm closing in the night inning. There ain't no point in resisting. Living life like a dream, live it right, that's the thing. Every night got a team, I've been tied to the scene. Out on stage, here on screen. Okay, it's a dream, and I pray as a team. One day it'll be me. If I want it, then I'll get it. Head down, don't regret it. Push myself to the limit. If I play it, then I win it. I'm just saying, I'm just living for today. For a minute, I don't stay, I just visit. Have no shame, I admit it. Looking at me to see if I succeed, to see if I believe. They're looking up to me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now. Swear to God, man, I'ma make it soon. Silence all the haters as they see us making moves. I do what I want, so I got nothing to prove. Staying motivated, teaching others what to do. I'm staying focused, my mind is open. They start to notice that I'm in motion. There is no potion, you're not just chosen. It takes devotion to stay composed, man. Never stop, there ain't no time to fall. Try to live, get it up, you got one life to fall. Thinking big, never small, cause you gotta want it all. When you finally get that call, you get ready, take it on. Need a hand out, I already stand out. Starting to advance now, ready to expand now. You won't have a chance now, that's why.
Alright everybody, so the rear truss is on, the brackets are on, the tie-in kit is all welded in. Everything looks phenomenal. TMR did an amazing job, like always, creating a simple and easy kit to put together. I'm going to come back to my shop in the next day or so and go over everything on the truss with the tie-in kit, everything, just to show you what I liked, things that probably could have been better, and also the little modifications that we had to do to make everything work. But all in all, everything came out great, and like I said, I'll come back next day or two and go over everything with you. Alright everyone, so I'm back at the shop 2 days after we did all the welding and everything, so I got some time to take a little break. Had to go to work today, which sucked, but work is work. So like I said, I just want to go over the things I liked, a couple things I didn't like, a couple little modifications I had to do just because of certain complications. But all in all, everything went great. The truss is absolutely phenomenal. TMR makes a outstanding kit. The welds Raven did are phenomenal all throughout. There's a couple spots that we had to double up on, kind of fill a couple gaps, but like I said, I'm going to cover that. Just wanted to go over a couple things with the axle. So first things first, TMR makes an outstanding kit. I mean, the top plate is 3/8 thick. The pinion guard, its back plate is 1/2 inch. This plate is 3/8. I mean, it's honestly overkill for what a truss needs to be. But if you're gonna go seriously beating and wheeling on a axle, you want a kit that's gonna outlast basically everything you do. You want it to withstand and hold up, and that's exactly what TMR's kits are meant for. But the one big thing I loved about the rear kit compared to the front truss is that some of these brackets are pre-bent, so all you had to do was weld a plate onto these and then 2 little brackets and a plate onto these. You didn't have to build out the bracket as much as you did with the front axle, which honestly isn't a bad thing. It didn't take us too long to actually build the ones with the front, but for the rear, time-wise, having these technically pre-bent, pre-built was amazing and helped out a lot. But that's kind of the first thing that I absolutely love about this kit, so we'll move on to the next. The next thing I really liked about this kit is the fact of it being portrayed for different applications. So right here you have your spring bucket. You have a secondary hole right here, so if per se you're doing a stretch and you want your spring bucket set back a little bit, or for some other reason, you can do that. You can have it set in the center or slightly off to the back, whatever you need to, which makes it a lot better for certain applications. You're not having to completely not use a bracket and put a different one on. You can just set it where you need to, which is great. The last big thing that I liked, and also which helped out in the process of welding everything, is the top plate here for the upper control arm mount, and also the skid plate for the lower control arm mount. They have like a little point in each corner, almost like a little tiny tab, but it's mainly just like a pointed off edge I'm not sure if that's just the way that it comes out of the plasma cutter from TMR or if that's their plan in general, but it just helps so that you can take this plate, set it on top where you need to go, and then tack it into place. You're not struggling to hold it up and then do it. You can set it, put a little finger, a little pressure, and then tack it into place and weld it, which made it great and a lot easier to put brackets together just because you didn't have to hold everything in one place and then weld it together. So that's a great thing. Like I said, I'm not sure if that's what they made it for or if it's just how it comes out. The only thing, if they were a little bit longer, would be great, because on, I believe it was this bracket, it was just barely hanging on. But again, made it work. You get it, it's a slight balancing out. You get all 3 points in the right spot, and then you can weld it, and it's great. So that is basically it for all the stuff I like. Now for the couple things I had to do modification wise. So for the slight modification I had to do, it's not a big thing. It was very minor, which is great, but it happens. It can happen with any truss kit you get. You might have to slightly modify it, and it's not TMR's fault. It's just something that happens when you cut metal with a plasma cutter, because the metal can get so hot it can slightly twist or it can slightly warp, and sometimes you got to slightly modify it around it, which it's not a bad thing. So after we set the truss on top of the axle, we started to put the upper control arm mounts in place. Well, we noticed that one was sitting flush, keyed into the top plate, but as soon as we took this side, we keyed it in, we noticed that it wasn't sitting flush on the tube. So if we pressed it down so it would sit flush on the tube, it would lift the truss up slightly and kind of give it a slight little up and over, slight little twist. So we took the brackets off, we took the truss off, and I set it down on the ground. After setting it down on the ground, I could kind of give it a slight wobble. It had a slight little twist in it, which isn't that big of a deal. So what we ended up having doing is we set this level just to confirm it. Set this at level, put the level over here, it was all good. Put the level here, it was all good. Put it here, you notice it was slightly off. And then once you got between here and the very end is where you notice the bubble in the level completely was outside of it. Now granted, it was just a little torpedo level, and if you raised it to where it would be level, it was off by a 1/16 or a 32nd of an inch. I mean, it was very minor. So with everything keying into place properly, that little minor twist caused us not to be able to sit these completely flat. So what we had to do is we cut the little knob that comes off the top plate that normally would key into the side of this. We cut that off on both sides, then we welded the truss down, clamped it down, and welded it so that this side would get as much as we could leveled out. It still had that slight little twist, like I said. So once we got it all welded down, we just took these brackets, lined them up how they would. So you'll notice that this side over here just barely sticks out past the truss. That's how much that it just needed to go. Whereas on this side, it's completely in line with the truss. So that's really the only issue that we had putting this truss together. The whole thing just, it all keyed into place very well. That was the only thing that technically we had to modify. And then we had to account for this bracket not being able to key into this 100% because it would be a slightly different degree than it would be on that side. So we got the actual digital level pulled out, got the exact degree for that side, and then just accounted it on that side, getting everything lined up how it's supposed to be. So that is basically it on what we had to do for the truss, the things I liked, and the little modification we had to do, which, like I said, it wasn't a bad thing. So that is basically it covering the truss. Alright, so the very last thing I want to talk about is the pinion guard tie-in kit. Now the pinion guard itself is super thick, it's super beefy, it'll take a beating all day long. Then you have your connector plate, which has these little side gussets get welded to it for extra support, which is great. Everything bolts up into place. Now the one slight modification we had to do is this plate, where this bracket bolts to, it was about 3/4 of an inch too long. So we took a plasma cutter real quick, well, straight edge first, drew the line exactly where we needed it, took a plasma cutter, cut it, cleaned it up, and then welded it on, which for a modification, it was not a hard modification at all. Super quick, super simple. Now, I'm not 100% sure if that's why TMR does that, leaves the bracket a little bit long so that if you want, you can tuck it up under here or kind of put it up here if you want to get a thicker weld underneath it. Like I said, I'm not sure if that's how they do it, but that's a slight modification I had to do with the pinion guard tie-in kit. Not hard at all. So that is basically it. That's going to cover everything that you're going to get and how to weld the TMR Customs 14 bolt JK 1-ton truss swap kit. Now I gotta clean up the slag on this. I'm gonna drop these off at sandblasting later this week, I hope, and then once they come back, get them painted. I got gears. I picked up a locker yesterday, so like I said, we're gonna get these things under the Jeep hopefully within the next month and a half. So stay tuned, guys. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.